DIYs-by-dar, let's restore it. This is a bare wood challenge put on by Crystal from the Crafty Creech, co-hosted by the New Renaissance. This is my table, looking pretty rough. You can see all the scratches, gouges, discoloration, stains on the top of this table. Hello my friends, it's Dar from DIYs-by-dar. This is my new project. This is an extremely old table that has come from my family. So I've got somebody that really does want it. So I need to do a good job. I am not sure if we're dealing with solid wood or veneer. When I start sanding, I guess I'm going to find out. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm guessing that this is getting pretty close to qualifying for an antique because my parents had it when I was a baby. So that's 60 years old at least, and I know it's older than that. If anybody has any ideas on what the table is, let me know. It's kind of cool because it has sides that come down, and it makes it a nice little thin table. I'm not sure what the purpose of it was, but you see how you could really trim this down to size. So it's pretty dirty, and I'm going to get vacuuming, and then I'm going to scrub it, and I'm going to use pretty strong TSP. Make sure you have your gloves on, so let's get to it. I decided I was going to take the legs off just to make it easier to sand them. And when I got this off and I laid it down, I could see, great, I got a problem. This one is pretty warped. Time to clean it, squeaky clean. I used that really strong TSP with my gloves on. And once I went initially all the way around that bottom, I went back with a little plastic brush and I had to clean and scrub in between all them grooves just to get all that dirt that was in there for the last 60 years. Here was my leg fix. I soaked it in water. Then I took an extremely straight board and set it on the top with some anchor weights. And I was hoping that would kind of shape it up just a little bit. I decided not to use stripper, and I got out the Carbide scraper. And I did have to use a lot of force. You can see that the table is shaking when I'm pulling it, but it did come off. I'm going to use the 80 grit on my orbital, and at this point I can tell that this table is solid wood. And I think sometimes when you have these older tables and there are areas where there's fluctuations in temperatures, like here in Michigan, hot and cold, that stain can really get embedded into that wood. So I had to go a couple rounds with the 80 before I could get that table really cleaned up on the bottom. And the top too. I went ahead and I did the bottom first before I turned it over and did the top. Time for my surf prep. I really like the surf prep for areas like this. I will put the sponge on and I will offset that sandpaper so you can get snug up next to things, and it does work really, really well. Now I'm going to go ahead and get these legs done. And now my surf prep does not undulate like that, so I'm not sure what is it going on here. It's got to be a optical illusion, but I really put the sponge kind of offset and get into all those little crooks and crannies with that surf prep first before I get to that hand sanding. Change your sandpaper. Now here is the hand sanding, and to the right of me you can see a little pile of black ribs, and they are actually contour sanding grip pads, and they work really well when you're trying to get into little areas like this. You just find the one that's going to work where you need it and then wrap it with the sandpaper and sand away. I noticed that my sandpaper had blood on it, and I'm like, what in the heck? And I looked at my fingers, and all the tips of my fingers were sanded off and they were bleeding. So if you're somebody like me and you have nerve damage and you can't feel that, just be conscious and look at your fingertips. Here is a crack that I needed to repair. So I just got some wood glue in my syringe and tried to squeeze it in there. And wiped it back a bit and put the clamp on. Round two, sometimes when you work with these old pieces and you move them around, you're going to have something come apart. So I had the other leg come apart, so I had to also glue that one and clamp it. Left them for 24 hours. I had some holes that I needed to fill. So I took some of the sawdust and some wood glue, and I mixed up myself some nice little putty that's the same color as the table. And I filled any holes, dings, or cracks that I could find. And I will overfill them a bit, so then I only have to go back through and sand them once. Hello, this is an update. Well, after avoiding getting COVID for 2 years, I finally have COVID, and today is number 6. I never did take the vaccine because I'm immunocompromised from medications that I take for lupus, Sjogren's syndrome, and rheumatoid arthritis. So we went to a family shower, and my 81-year-old mother got it, my 83-year-old father got it, my 64-year-old sister got it, and then I got it myself. I probably fared the best out of everybody, but it still was not a lot of fun and still isn't a lot of fun. It's Halloween today, and I can't even taste any Halloween candy, so I guess why do I even eat it? I'm not going to. The biggest fear right now that I have is I'm taking care of my mother-in-law. It's going on a year that she's been in our home. She has severe dementia, and she is on hospice now. And if I bring that to her, that would be completely devastating. So I've had to really be careful. So far we're okay, and I pray to the Lord above that she does not get this. My husband doesn't have it, and she doesn't have it so far. So, lesson learned, don't let your guard down. I should have worn a mask that day like my parents, and what are you gonna do? So the table, I'm gonna hit the top with some 220 and finish it off, and maybe a little more hand sanding there on the bottom. And then I am ready to go ahead and see if I need to bleach the top, if there's any staining that remains on there. And I do have some stain picked out, and we'll be ready to stain this table. So let's get to it. Okay, I have my oxalic acid, and the measurement is 1 part oxalic acid to 6 parts water. So I kind of just cut it in half. So I have about 3 cups of water there with a half a cup of the oxalic acid. And there are some areas that you can see some rings coming through and a little bit of unevenness. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some on here and see what happens. I was very careful with the oxalic acid. I wanted to get it right around the edge so it didn't leave drips going down the little indentation, and then did the indentation very, very carefully. And once I did get this all completed, you let that dry, and after it is dry, you can almost see them little crystals sitting on the top. You need to take plain water and wash it off real well. And since it was a sunny day here in Michigan, I went ahead once I had it cleaned and set it out in the sun, so that would help with some of the bleaching effect on the top of this table. That seemed to work well, and now I'm ready for that 220 hand sand. I'm getting ready for the stain on the top of this table. I'm going to use No Pain Gel Stain by DixieBelle and Walnut. I just used an old sock, and that worked really great because you have to get in all them little grooves and indentations, and that seemed to work the best. And I decided to go ahead and get the whole bottom of this table completed first, and even my Polycyrlic satin top coat spray before I turned the table over and did the top portion. So this is a sprayer I use, a Homeright Super Max sprayer, and you can actually see a lot of overspray, and that is why it is important to make sure that you wear a mask so you do not breathe that in. But I did put 3 coats on the bottom, ready to go on the top. Yes, I'm sure if I would have had some pre-stain conditioner, maybe this would have turned out a little bit better. But there were areas that were really picking up dark, like right here on some of the ends, and I really had to scrub, but it didn't seem to make a whole lot of a difference. It just picked up darker in some spots than others. pulled that sock back out, and I just got that little rim that goes around the edge of the table and rubbed that stain in and got it to match the whole table. And once again, polycrylic satin finish. I'm going to spray it. I think by the end of it, I ended up putting 6 coats on it because I was sanding in between with 320 for the fuzz that went on it, the bug that flew into it, and by the end there were 6 coats, but it was glass smooth. Here's the table that I started with, looking pretty rough. You can see all the staining and dings in the top. This is what I ended up with. Thanks for watching so much, you guys. And please like and subscribe. I got 2 projects I'm working on right now. Not sure when I'll get them up soon.